All right, let's jump right in. Today we are breaking down a really fascinating analysis from Augusta Global Insights, and it uncovers this huge, kind of surprising shift in the world of artificial intelligence. So this is the big question, right? At first glance, it makes you scratch your head. Why would the richest companies in the world pour billions and billions of dollars into states that have, historically struggled with their economies? Well, the answer really pulls back the curtain on the hidden logic of this whole AI boom. And it all starts with headlines just like this one. We're not talking about a small office park here. This is a colossal amount of land in Wyoming, a place you probably associate more with national parks than tech hubs. And that right there is our first big hint that something is changing. And it's not just a one-off. The pattern continues, and honestly, it gets even bigger. Look at this. Amazon is planning to invest 25 times $1 billion in Mississippi. So you see, these aren't just random choices. This is a very big, very deliberate strategy. All of this points to what we're calling AI's new geography. What we're witnessing, in real time, is the physical foundation of the entire AI revolution being built, not in Silicon Valley, but in places you would probably least expect. So, what's the deal? Why these states? Well, Augusta Global's research zeroes in on 4 key things. First off, land. Lots of it, and it's cheap. Second, and this one is a huge deal, is access to just massive amounts of power for these energy-hungry data centers. Then you've got favorable tax policies from states that are really eager for this kind of investment. And finally, political leverage. I mean, when you show up with a multi-billion-dollar project, you definitely get a lot of attention in the state capital. And we have to give credit where it's due. This fantastic analysis comes straight from Augusta Global Insights. They're the ones who connected all the dots here, showing that this isn't just about finding cheap real estate. Nope, it's a very calculated move to lock down the resources you need to scale the AI economy, and scale it fast. Okay, but here's where the story gets really interesting. It's this huge trade-off between how much money is being spent versus how many local jobs are actually being created. Let's circle back to that Amazon deal in Mississippi. Think about that number for a second. $25 billion. For a state where, average incomes have typically been lower than the rest of the country, a number like that sounds absolutely game-changing. But, and this is the big but, look at the number of jobs. That enormous investment is expected to create around 2,000 direct, high-skilled jobs. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not nothing. But when you put it next to $25 billion, it's a surprisingly small number. And this really gets to the heart of what these projects are. They are what you'd call capital heavy. Just a ton of money gets poured into the infrastructure, the servers, the cooling, the buildings themselves. But on the flip side, they're labor light. Once they're up and running, these highly automated facilities just don't need a huge crew to operate them day to day. Okay, so if the states aren't getting a flood of thousands and thousands of jobs, what are they getting out of this? Well, the real prize is different. It's that initial burst of construction activity, it's a much bigger property tax base for years to come, and it's a ton of private money being invested into the local power grid. And maybe most importantly, it's a shot at becoming a permanent, essential part of the future AI infrastructure. All right, let's zoom out for a second and look at a few other big market stories from the week because they actually tie into all this economic pressure we're talking about. First up, housing. According to Fortune, the price of a starter home has jumped an incredible 87% in just the last 7 years. 87%! That is exactly the kind of economic pressure that makes a multi-billion-dollar investment, whatever the job count, sound like a lifeline to state governments. And it's not just about buying a house. The cost of raising a child up to age 18 has now officially passed the $300,000 mark. And where you live makes a huge difference, which, hey, brings us right back to our main story and states like Mississippi. And you can really see that difference right here. I mean, look at this gap. In a state like Hawaii, you're looking at over $40,000 a year for the first 5 years. But in Mississippi, it's just over $17,000. It's this lower cost of living that's a key part of the whole economic picture that makes these states so ready to welcome the kind of massive investment big tech is bringing to the table. And one last highlight, this one from the global stage. Axios is reporting a pretty big shift in U.S. policy. The Trump administration has eased up on financial sanctions against Venezuela. Now that's a move that could have big ripples in global energy markets. The same energy that's becoming absolutely essential to power this entire AI boom.
So after looking at the new map of AI and some of the bigger economic forces at play, let's boil it all down to the key takeaway.
So here's the bottom line. Big tech is basically exporting the AI boom, building its physical foundation in America's less wealthy states. They're going there for that perfect combo of cheap land, tons of available power, and, let's be honest, political influence. In return, the states get some badly needed infrastructure upgrades and a much bigger tax base, but not the huge jobs boom you might have expected. At the end of the day, the tech giants get to secure the physical backbone for the entire future AI economy.
And that leaves us with one last, really big question to think about. As the foundation of AI gets built, not in Silicon Valley, but deep in America's heartland, who really truly benefits the most from the boom?